This is an Undiscovered Legacy production and proud member of Pod Nation Media Network. Hello, Scoob believers, and welcome to episode 104 of the Undiscovered Entrepreneur, and it's me, Scoob, coming at you at whatever device you happen to be listening on. All right, so before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit more about what I've been doing lately. I just opened a stand store. You might not know what it is. It's basically kind of like a Linktree, but on steroids. So if you go to stand.store/Scoob, Skoob, you can see everything that I'm offering right now, all my social medias, all in one place. Right now, I have a special going on right now for a limited time only, where I go doing one-on-one coaching for $1 whole. That's right, $1 for a 45-minute coaching call with me. I also have free prompts. I have the 4 prompts to get you started across the start line in your entrepreneur adventure, all available in this one spot. So please go to stand.store/Scoob to learn more about what I'm doing. If you want to make a stand store for yourself, go to tuepodcast.net/stand, STAN, and you get a 14-day free trial to check things out for yourself. All right, that being said, today we are talking to Christy. Now, Christy, from childhood, inspired by her father's and grandfather's entrepreneurial spirit, ended up founding Oconco Marketing in 1999. Christy has built her business on the principle that genuine faith and perseverance lead to unexpected opportunities. Christy's greatest achievement isn't a single business success, but developing a mindset of resilience, turning failed campaigns into learning opportunities, and remaining oblivious to loss while pushing forward. During one of her darkest moments, facing potential bankruptcy, Christy received a serendipitous call that led her to the biggest client relationship of the past decade, proving her philosophy that stepping across the gap of uncertainty is what defines a true entrepreneur. And with that, let's listen to somebody that's really super inspiring to me. Let's listen to Christy. Salutations, Scoob believers, and we're here again with another amazing entrepreneur. Today we're here with Christy. Hey, Christy, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic.
All right. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be on the Undiscovered Entrepreneur, get across the start line. I super appreciate you.
Oh, yeah, same here. I really appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Okay, before we get into anything, I kind of have a semi-serious question to ask you, okay? You ready?
Yes,
Okay. Are you a Scoob believer?
I am the ultimate school believer.
Oh my gosh.
100%.
All right. Thank you, Christy. I super appreciate you. That's awesome. You make my heart feel good there. Okay. So, Christy, do me a favor
you know what
here
they
and
say.
what was that?
I said, you know what they say? Love is the only thing that increases the more you give it away.
Yeah, that is exactly what they say. I love that. That's awesome. We'll clip that out. Okay, everybody. Got that? Okay, awesome. All right. So, Chrissy, tell me a little bit about kind of who you are, what your entrepreneur adventure is, and how you actually got across the start line.
It's really interesting story, actually, because I feel like I've been in this process my whole life. I grew up in a family-owned business, and I just remember my dad. So almost all of my ethics and my drive came from my father and my grandfather, because these were just two hardworking men. And I just remember my father having these conversations, those early conversations with your parents where you hear them they're not fighting and they're just kind of debating, and they're stressed out over money or they're stressed out over whatever. They're not really fighting. They're just stressed out. And he's, I can't do this anymore. I can't work for somebody else. And he went through this whole story how he had his own office and his boss was coming down on him and whatever it was. I mean, fill in the blank. But over and over and over again as a child, I remember him saying, I'm not going to do it, even when we were struggling financially, because we were very poor when we were kids. So when I was really, really young, he decided to break off on his own, and he was just never, ever going to work for somebody else again. He was only going to produce his own income. And so there was ups and downs. And so I just actually am very grateful that we went through that, even though we were poor. And there was many times where we had some other unfortunate stories about housing and things like that. But it built I don't know, an armament or a tenacity in me or whatever, that kind of never give up attitude. So that's where I bring it back to.
That's awesome. I actually have a very similar story. My father and grandfather both had their own businesses, but they both obviously started out working in a normal employment. My father was a foreman for the San Jose Mercury News newspaper, and he ended up making his own shop in his garage to print t-shirts and hats and stuff like that. And he had all kinds of people come to him, schools and industries, ask him to make custom shirts and stuff like that. My grandfather, after he retired, he was like, I'm going to do something for myself. He ended up filling fire extinguishers on his off
Wow.
time, which was really cool because he had a little shop in his garage, just like my dad. And the entrepreneur bug has been kind of embedded in my DNA as well too during that whole thing because I watched them do it. My dad was definitely my hero starting his own business, and I always kind of like wanted to follow in those kind of footsteps. So yeah, that's amazing how we can have family members that really enhance what we actually want to do.
Is it all right if I tell you a little story?
Oh yes, please. I love stories.
My grandfather's my hero. Man, did I love him. Same thing. He always had a shop. So his thing was he worked for the shipyard in Boston. So you get the government job or you get the job that has all the benefits and all that, the good salary, and then you do something on the side. You have the shop in the garage. And he did the same thing. So when I was a little kid, I don't know, it was probably, I don't know, late 80s or something like that. I would visit my grandfather and I used to love to just listen to him talk about how he was making money. There was something inside of me. I just always wanted to know how to get ahead. But there was this bump in his driveway and he was going to show me how to work outside. And I'm thinking, I don't know anything about driveways. You know, I don't think I was over 8 years old. I was just a little girl, but I loved my grandfather and I used to love to go into his shop and watch him tinker. He would fix engines, things like that. He was a small engine repair guy. And just so he was explaining, yeah, so I got to fix my driveway. And he was the guy that his driveway was sealed with that black sealer every year. Everything was pristine, everything was organized, everything was perpendicular to the next thing. I mean, he was really organized. He could not stand this bump in his driveway. Anyways, lo and behold, that bump turned out to be this tip of this giant rock that was underneath his driveway that was just kind of making the tar raise up a little bit. So the whole process was him showing me how to take off the top layer of tar and dig this thing out and then patch it. So fast forward 20 years, bought my house, I had a kid. He brings this thing over. Now, this guy's had 2 hip replacements. He's in his 70s and he remembers this story. And he's, you have your own house now. So he brings this rock that's sitting in my yard to this day. I don't know how many times throughout the years where someone has said, oh, just let's move that rock. No, 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 don't touch the rock. He saved it for over 20 years, that rock. What a nice memory that was. But it's more than a rock. It's symbolic because he showed me how to break through, how to tackle something you didn't know. Here I am, a little girl. Not only could I not pick up the rock, I had no concept of how to break up tar. And here's my grandfather that I just look up to like he's just a king, explaining to me simple things that someone else might take for granted. But what a wonderful memory and how that impacted my life on how to just, I don't know, just take on things that maybe you don't think you can do. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. I mean, the symbolism of the rock. I mean, there's so many different stories that you can kind of relate to a rock being in the way and us taking that rock in one way, shape, or form and it symbolizing something later on in life. I mean, I would probably have that rock up on my mantle or yeah, somewhere really important because and maybe just a rock to the outside. It's just a plain rock, but to us it symbolizes something, not only experience that we have, but something we can look up towards and remember and remind yourself that rock means this. So it's great to be able to have something like that to remind you, especially when it gets into the tough times, because we all go through the tough times and be able to look up or outside in your case and see the rock as the centerpiece of whatever it is that you're doing. It kind of gives you that warm fuzzy feeling. I'm going to get through this because I got through that rock.
Yep, and also that there's more to it than meets the eye. The surface might be this little bend in the tar that seems to be a little bit difficult to knock through, but it's just the tip of it. When you dig down, there's so much more. If you can get through it, there's a lot more, and it's so satisfying.
Yeah, absolutely. How big is the rock? Could you show us how big the rock was?
Bigger than what you're showing. I
Okay.
would say about the size of, let's just say a basketball, a little bigger than a basketball.
And how much of the tip was actually showing that was bending the tar?
2 inches.
Amazing.
But it was the point. So if it was like a football shape, I was like this little point, and then it was like way down. But now the tar was just like this little teeny point. And he's like, oh no, I'm a perfectionist. I got to get this thing to be smooth as glass. Little did he know,
Right.
because we were there all day. And I remember his patience, because he wanted to fix his driveway. He didn't want to dig a big giant hole. So now he's thinking, oh no, there's going to be this giant pothole, and now it's going to be a big patch. It's not a little patch that I'm putting in here. So there's a lot more to it. I guess you had to be there, but I just love my papa.
That's the whole moral of the story right there. I love it. So I want to ask you a real quick question here now.
Yep.
My listeners all are brand new entrepreneurs that are just getting started, but what do you actually think holds back a lot of entrepreneurs from
Okay.
getting across the start line in their entrepreneur adventure?
A leap of faith. You got to step out. You can't wait until success comes. You have to go to the success. You've got to take that step across the gap. You've got to be the one. That's what defines, I think, an entrepreneur, is someone who's willing to fill in the gap or step across that gap in order to go seek out and create and innovate. Um, if you're a leader, you're a leader. If you're a follower, you're a follower. So you can just make that distinction in your mind. Do I want to follow? Now, you can follow in someone's footsteps and say, all right, I'm going to take some of these great successful people, I'm going to follow in their footsteps. So I don't mean that. But what I mean is that you've got to have that little bit of gumption to say, you know what? Win or lose, I'm willing to fail. I'm willing to do what it takes. It's okay if I fail, but I got to take this step, and I have to go for it. You can make a controlled decision and educate a guess. You can be cautious, but you've got to make that leap.
And that leap actually equals to what I call getting across the start line. That's why I say that a lot. Taking that leap to whatever is on the other side of the road or the crack or wherever we want to say it is what makes us who we are, and how we take that experience and learn from it and see what's on the other side, and not have the regret of not knowing what's on the other side of that leap. And something comes to mind too as you say that. It's something that one of my first interviews said that always sticks in my head. Even this pawn could become a queen.
Yeah, that's the ugly duckling story.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you could be a follower at one point, but at one point you got to take the leap and become a leader.
Every single thing that I've done in my life, I always look back at it and say, okay, that's what's prepared me for today. All of those things were for a reason, good, bad, or indifferent. I've learned from those things, and I take the good with me. I carry it with me. And I don't always focus on the negative. It's even the negative is a positive in a way, because that's what gives you the life experience, and experience will trump book learning anytime. When you learn the hard way, I could write something about you personally and say, oh wow, he's got this podcast and he talks to these entrepreneurs and what an amazing experience. But unless I actually sit down and speak with you and get to know you, I won't have that experience, that firsthand experience. So don't be afraid to lose. Don't be afraid to step out there and do that, because that experience is so valuable.
And that's why failure is so valuable in what we do as entrepreneurs, because that's usually how we make our best lessons. That's where we get our best lessons, is from that failure, firsthand experience of that failure. And then instead of throwing our hands up in the air and saying, I'm not meant for this, let's see what it actually meant for us. What can we learn from this so we can move on to our next entrepreneur adventure and use that experience in whatever it is that we do next?
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, as a marketing professional, we seek failure. We actually seek failure. We've conditioned ourselves to do what we call obviously A/B testing. Most people know what that is. And so in every single test, there's a failure, and we like it. We're like, oh, good, that's the one that doesn't work. We're grateful. Hey, the truth has been revealed to us. Now we know. We know which one works and which one doesn't. Some of the greatest relationships I've ever had has been with campaigns for businesses that started off with a failure, because what they saw, not only did they see the failure, but they also saw a professional that didn't give up, that wanted to make it right, that had the ethics to say, you know what, this isn't a bad thing, and so let's try this. And some of the best relationships, because when you start off with a failure, sometimes when you get that win, you latch right onto it, and it just gives you so much more fuel.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. So when you were first getting started, having that leap of faith, was that the thing that was kind of stopping you from getting across the star line, or was it something different?
No, there really wasn't much stopping me. I got to tell you, I think that I've been prepared for this. I think, in all honesty, from a kid, I saw the examples and I knew what it was like. And I was working in an environment where, I mean, I guess call it ego, but I was winning and winning and winning. And I was able to run the teams, and everyone was coming to me asking for the answers. And I didn't have the resources or the cash flow. So that was intimidating. So the one thing was like, okay, I know I can do this, but I really don't have the cash flow. I don't have the same resources. I don't have the tools these other companies have. And so it was faith. I mean, I have very strong faith. I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus. And I was like, you know what, Lord, I'm going to go for it. Just please protect me. And I went for it. And it was very interesting because it was like Jesus did. He showed up for me because I had some cash come into my life that was unexpected. I had customers come out of the woodwork that was unexpected. I had, very interesting conversations where I mean, there was one time where I thought I was going bankrupt. I was very upset. I was like, okay, I guess I have to deal with this now. And I really thought I was done. I just really believed it. And then I got this phone call from somebody I knew from 18, 20 years ago. It says, hey, I got this new product. Let me teach you about this product. It's a service. It's a automated, it was for telemarketing, that kind of thing. But at the time, it was 10, 15 years ago, 10 years ago now. It was cutting edge. And this is how it works. Oh, cool. I don't think it was 24 hours later, I had a customer find my website and say, hey, somebody told me, and friend of a friend of a friend said to call you. Can you do this new thing that we keep hearing about? I was like, oh, yeah, I just learned all about it. All that product knowledge I got 24 hours later. And I've been making really great revenue with this customer now for the past 10 years. And it was just a serendipitous phone call because I had the faith. I stepped over that gap again. And when I was faced with bankruptcy, I was like, I was willing to go bankrupt. Once again, I really did have the faith, that internal faith, like, okay, Lord, nothing is really mine anyway. So if you want to take this from me, you can take it. I didn't fall into a deep depression. I think if I actually did go bankrupt, I'd probably be a little bit depressed. And truth be told, there was some depression. I think I'd be lying if I said I didn't fall into depression, because it was sad. I was like, oh no, I gotta get rid of a job. What am I gonna do? you know?
Yeah.
Like, forget it. I'll just go wait tables. You're a president and CEO one day, and then the next day you're waiting tables. So that was not a good. That wasn't a pretty picture. But it just serendipitously, the universe just comes along and boom, and I'm off and running again.
It tends, and it's interesting that you tell a story that's like that because what energies we actually put out there, we get back and just in so many different folds. If we keep a positive thing, even though we're going through a very, very negative thing, is if we keep pushing forward and we keep digging that hole, I mean, we could be one shovel away from the gold. So we got to keep shoveling.
Yes.
We got to keep going because we're going to hit that vein as long as we don't stop. And if we do stop, then the guy that's behind you, that's going to shovel that one more shovel, is going to get the gold. We don't want him to have it. We want to have it. So, but that's really how it
Yeah,
works.
you're absolutely right. Whatever your outlook is, your spiritual outlook is, I mean, if you could just look at the big picture, that material things, sometimes it doesn't matter. It's like we hold so much value and, oh, I need that sale or I need that one thing, holding on to those small things when just the fact of saying, you know what, if I lose it all, it wasn't really mine to begin with. It's not as important as just keeping going and having that tenacity and being willing to leave it all out there. So yeah, like, I know it sounds kind of dramatic, but it really is true. There's so many times, two or three times in my career, my largest sale ever in the history of my life was during COVID. And it was because I was the last person standing. There was so much regulation and so many problems and so many things and barriers. And I just kept going and kept going and kept going. And I kept praying and saying, all right, Lord, we're going to do this. Matter of fact, one of my business partners died.
Mm.
And I was the last person standing. And ultimately, I look at it also as something that was meant to be, because all of those people didn't have the right mindset. They would have just kind of been takers rather than co-creators. They all fell by the wayside. And me being the last person standing, I reaped all the rewards. And it was the largest single sale in my entire life. And it was just the most amazing experience. But it was the hardest thing I ever did.
You hung in there just enough time to be the last one standing to be able to reap the benefits of everything that was left.
It was great.
It's fantastic. So a lot of the questions that I'm sure you get in all these interviews is, what was your worst pitfall? What was the worst thing that ever happened to you? Things of that nature. I like to look at it a little bit different, a little more positively, if you ask me. What was the hardest pitfall that you're actually proud of? What was the thing that, was a rough time, but I'm glad I went through that hard pitfall, because I figure this fits in there right perfectly to what we're talking about, that you're most proud of, that I learned from the most?
I think that's a difficult one. Sometimes I end up trading. There's trade-offs in business where okay, I want to sell this thing, but I don't have the tools, or I don't have the cash flow, or I don't have whatever it is. And my trade-off tends to be working on contingency. I'll work for equity or I'll work for commission. And then you're trusting other people. And the reason why they want you to work on commission is because they don't have the cash flow either. Or they're selfish and greedy. It doesn't tend to be because they're rolling in it. They're either greedy or they don't have the cash flow. But I can say that I always know I never want to work on I hate it. I never, and then I end up doing it when I need to, when I feel like I feel pressured or I feel like I don't have enough business coming in the door. And I always hate doing it. And then at the end of the day, go, you know what? I feel like I chose the right partners to do that with, because I'll turn down a lot of people, but the one or the two people that I actually agree to do that with, you can just tell they're so appreciative. And even if I don't make a dime, they'll bring me customers, they'll give me
Mhm.
referrals, they'll help me in a way, or they'll provide something that they have that didn't have a tangible value. So those are the mistakes, because everyone will tell you, don't work on contingency, don't do. But those are the mistakes that I appreciate, and I have really good relationships with these people.
It's not always about money. I mean, money is nice and that's on that kind of thing too, but sometimes the other things that come about from possibly even working for free or pro bono or however you want to say it, the turnaround of that positive energy could be something that later on will definitely be an asset for us. I mean, there's a couple times where I've done editing jobs for other people for their podcast, because I found out that they were behind. I was like, look, just give me an episode. I'll do it for you, and then you're all caught up. But later on, they say, oh, thank you for that. But they'll remember that I did that for them. Then they'll throw some people my way. Who knows? I've done free coachings where they turned around and said, hey, once I get to that point where I can pay you, I'm definitely going to be your client. Even though we're doing things on a contingency, sometimes it's for the better later on down the road. It's not going to be an instant gratification thing, because that's what everybody's working around right now, is instant gratification. If you play for the long term, even if it's something for free, it will come about again.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And the work ethic and surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded is so important. The second you find somebody that is being greedy or their heart is not in the right place, those are the regrets that you should regret. You just got to cut those people out, no matter how much you need to put food on your table. There comes a time where you just can't compromise.
You are the come on, brain. Sorry. But you are the combination of the five people you hang around most. And if any of those people are negative or are just not kind of like you saying, they're being greedy or something like that, you have to come out because eventually what's going to happen, it's going to start happening to you. You're going to start being like these people. We don't want to be those type of people. It's not in our realm. It's not who we want to be. So cutting those people off, sometimes it could be hard too, because it could even be a family member. Or it could be somebody that's really close to you. But you have to realize that with the negativity around them, it's not going to be a positive thing for you in the end.
That's a really good point, Scoob, because I call them toxic relationships. And so this year I'm like, all right, what's my new toxic relationship I'm going to get rid of? So at the end of last year, I was like, oh, thank God there was 2 toxic relationships, and okay, good. I got rid of this one and I got rid of that one because they just were not feeding me. They were draining me, draining. And they drain you with the hopes of getting that, whether it's income or notoriety or whatever it is you're seeking. You think you're going to get something from them. It's serving you in a way. But it's such a deception, and it's so draining. And so I was like, oh, thank God, it's just such a weight. I got rid of these toxic relationships. And then this year I'm like, okay, who's the next one on the chopping block? What's the next toxic relationship that's really draining me and really not feeding me and it's just a drain? Who's the next one? So now it's almost like the batting cage is like, who's on point here? So we gotta either create some results, and I need measurable results, or we have to end the relationship. And you don't have to be mean about it. You just say, listen, it's just really not aligning with my plans. And, we can continue to part as friends, but it's not serving the purpose, or there's no synergy here right now. And so I've learned how to do that. That's not an easy thing to do because especially when you're just starting out, you want to scale. You hear all these messages. You got to scale. You need a client base. You've got to create nurturing programs, and it's not them, it's you. All these things. It's mixed messaging. I mean, we know we're adults. We know when we have a healthy relationship and when we don't have a healthy relationship. And if it's not a healthy relationship, don't keep it. Don't keep that relationship, no matter how hard it is. And it's easier said than done. But that's one of the things I've learned the hard way too.
It's all part of the learning process and what we do. Like I said before, it's kind of a long-term thing, but as long as we keep going and learn from the things and the experiences that we have along the way, it's just going to get better because we become better people. We become more positive people, which in turn will attract positive things towards us. And then we have these serendipitous things happen, like you were talking about earlier. It's really interesting to me how that actually works.
Yeah. Yeah. I attribute it to my faith. What do you attribute it to?
Positive energies, always
Okay.
positive energies. If I can't do something positive about my situation, I just kind of reassess it and see what I can do. It's very interesting to me how, especially over the last 3 years of me even doing this podcast, me reaching out to other people and helping them has attracted more positive energy to me, not so much as from the person I'm interviewing and helping, but from other things around me that are happening. Being able to go to Podfest this last week was amazing, and I attribute that to a lot of the positive things that I've been putting out into the universe over the last 3 years. And that was great, and it just keeps growing from there. So I'm hoping it keeps going. As long as I keep putting the positive energies out there, we're gonna keep
Yeah.
going.
It will. It will. I guarantee it. It's like a flower. It's like a flower in the middle of the field. You could be the only flower there, but the little pollinators will find you.
There you go. That's awesome. So I'd like to know I mean, how long have you actually been working this business that you're in right now?
My very first website went live in 1995.
Hmm.
Oconco Marketing was born in 1999 and was incorporated in 2005. And I've been going strong ever since.
Fantastic. So within that time between when you first started and now, what do you think your best accomplishment is?
It's really a mindset. Just to be able to just have that positive mindset of, you know what, if they can do it, I can do this. And I'm talking about failed campaign after failed campaign after failed campaign, just being oblivious to loss. There's some certain people, I don't know if you know anybody in your life where you could just insult them no tomorrow and they just sit there and take it. That's kind of how I feel a little bit. But I've had some good successes too. I'm not trying to say, I mean, obviously I wouldn't be here if I didn't have some successful campaigns. But I think it's really it, and I have to attribute it back to my youth, back to my father and my grandfather. Like my grandfather he was the son of an Austrian immigrant. He went to World War II. He was working in the shipyards and he wanted to make a way for himself. I believe he bought one of those GI Bill houses over off of Boston area there in Weymouth. So he had one of those little GI houses and he did small engine repair on the side. And then because he did small engine repair, it morphed into all kinds of things. And so I just saw the example.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Once again, learning from the other people that we want to learn from and have the experiences that they had and just build it from there, then make it our own. Make it our own experience.
And believing them, being open and innocent enough. So just innocent enough to go, you know what? They're right. If you have 10 people that you respect, that you see tell you this is how it is, this will work for you, you can do this. So if you're an entrepreneur out there and you believe in your product and you've got something and you're open to the focus groups and people are saying, yeah, that is a good product. Be open to them saying, no, that's not a good product. And be open to taking constructive criticism and no, that's not the right way. Okay, what would be a good way? And really do the market research. So there's a foolish way of stepping into things. Fools rush in. And then there's a calculated way of going into things. I mean, I started my business with $500. It was $500 and I had a contact list. And that was it.
And now you're here.
Yeah, yeah, by the grace of God.
That's awesome. Let's say for example that you're kind of walking along on the street or whatever and you come into somebody who is just starting their entrepreneur adventure. They're literally just getting started. What one word of advice would you give this new entrepreneur that's just getting started?
Create a simplified one-page business plan.
Ah, tell me more about that.
If you have a simplified, and most people don't have a business plan at all, they think they're going to write up something to get a loan and they think it has to be 25, 30 pages and they get kind of hung up in, I need this official looking document for the bank. And I say, humbug. You want a one-page business plan. Simplified one-page business plan. You hop on to ChatGPT. There's templates out there. We have templates. Anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to, you can reach out to me if you want to. I'm sure Scoob will help you, but something simplified. If you have a one-page business plan, I don't even think maybe 50% of the entrepreneurs even start with one. And if you do have one, I don't recall the statistics. We did look them up at one point. Something like 75% more likely to succeed. And then you can look at it from time to time. You can review it once a quarter, and then you create some feedback loops, which would be just feedback from, like I said, be open to constructive criticism, see what works, see what doesn't work. But it's market research and a plan. For example, if you live in a town and you want to start a food truck, you might not want to park your food truck at the circle where there's 500 other food trucks. You might not want to have the same type of food truck if there's 10 of them right next to each other at that circle. So just some basic research and a one-page business plan.
That's fantastic advice. And don't be afraid to, if it comes about, to change the business plan, even if you have to give it a little bit of tweak, because things change. The the environment around us changes. The thoughts in our head changes. Our experiences change. So even though you have a one-page business plan, which is a fantastic idea, but don't be afraid to fill in a few blanks or change a few words in it as you're going along, because that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's part of the one-page business plan, is to stay flexible because market conditions change. Pricing changes. If we go back to the food truck, the cost of food and supplies and gasoline have really gone up. And so things sometimes change. And that's where those feedback loops come in. So if you have a feedback loop of what do the finances look like? What's the customer sentiment look like? What's my internal staff sentiment look? Are my goals still in line? Can I still reach those goals? And if you can't, and you're looking at that one-page business plan, that's all you do. You're absolutely right. You just go right back down through that one page and say, okay, now we're going to tweak it a little bit. And you pivot.
That's right. And then you pivot and then you make the move and then you'd make the leap just like we talked in the very beginning and then go from there. See, it all comes
Don't
about.
give up. That's right. Don't give up. Don't give up. I mean, you have sports fans out there. If you don't get it the first time, you try again.
What is Michael Jordan said, you make none of the baskets that you don't shoot for.
That's right. That's right. And you hear that cliche, practice makes profit.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I like to do this with all my guests. In the next 6 months, where do you see you and your company? Where do you want to be in the next 6 months of what you're doing?
In the next 6 months, I'm going to be reaching my goal for a scaled up client base that's contributing to residual income. And then I want to help these businesses scale through automation and AI tools.
Excellent. How many clients do you think you'd have
I
additional?
need 70.
These 70 clients. My
Yep,
goodness.
I didn't calculate that within 6 months, but that's actually probably a pretty good benchmark. 6 months is good.
Okay. So what I'd like to do with you, Christy, is in 6 months, I'd like to follow up with you
Okay,
and see if you've reached these goals. Is that okay?
it's perfectly fine. And if I haven't, then we'll go back to the tape and say, I'm not going to give up.
We'll figure out what happened so we can actually hit that goal.
Yeah, we'll take our one-page business plan and we'll make adjustments. Say, okay, well, we only have 35, so we'll just have to increase our prices a little bit.
There you go.
We'll double it up.
There you go. That's awesome. All right. All right, Chrissy, this is your time to shine. This is your time where I want you to say how we get a hold of you and all that good stuff. Okay, ready, set, go.
Okay, my name is Christy O'Connor, O'Connor. I'm in Western Massachusetts. Look up that name, you'll see all kinds of stuff. The name of my company is Oconco Marketing, just like the last name, Oconco. And you'll see all kinds of places. Most people can find me through my LinkedIn page. So if you search Christy O'Connor, and you'll probably find a bunch of profiles in there, find the one that's actually Oconco Marketing, not the real estate or the legal, because my profile has been put up there all over the place. But yeah, just feel free to reach out to me. I love startups. I love entrepreneurs. I'm very happy to share information and to have discussions. And yeah, I'd love to just talk to whoever, and just please don't give up. Keep going, because that's what America's all about, the small business owner. And the way we encourage others and people that work for us and how we contribute to other people's families. It's meaningful. It's very, very meaningful thing. So I would definitely encourage everybody to just keep going. Don't give up.
All right. All right. That's awesome. Christy, thank you so much for being on the Undiscovered Entrepreneur. It's been an absolute pleasure. I actually learned a lot from you. Thank you so much.
Same here, Scoob. Thank you for inviting me. God bless.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
All right. All right, Scoob believers, make sure you stay tuned for the wrap up. All right, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, Scoob believers. That was Christy. Thank you so much, Christy, for taking the time to be on the Undiscovered Entrepreneur. Fantastic conversation. I hope you all were listening. She had some great, great information. But as usual, I do have a couple of takeaways here I want to talk with you about. When she was faced with her own rock in the driveway, remember, there's always more beneath the surface than meets the eye. Dig deeper, break through, and experience the profound satisfaction that comes from overcoming what once seemed impossible. The most successful entrepreneurs aren't those who avoid failure, but those who actively seek failure. They recognize that each failed attempt reveals the truth about what doesn't work, which brings them one step closer to what actually does work. So let's keep that in mind when we do fail. It is one step closer to the actual thing that works for us, that takes off, and will show us what kind of entrepreneur we can really be. And with that, I want to say thank you very much for another episode of the Undiscovered Entrepreneur, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye, everybody.